Welcome to Talent Hub Talk. I am Ben Duncan, and this is a place where prominent and inspirational figures from both the local ANZ and global Salesforce Ohana share their stories. Welcome back to Talent Hub Talk. So if you listened to last week's episode, you'll know that we have now released our Salesforce salary survey results. If you're in the ANZ market already, hopefully you'll have received a copy on email. If not, jump on our website and you can download a copy from there. I know that not everyone has the time to sit down and go over the whole document. So I wanted to record a podcast today just to go over some of the interesting stats that we presented. The feedback we've had so far has been absolutely awesome. I know people have really enjoyed reading through and taken a lot of value from what we've presented, and that's made it all really worthwhile. And we're very proud of what we've been able to achieve with this survey. If you do have the time, I do recommend jumping in and taking a look. If not, I'll try to go through as much as possible today, just so you've got a good understanding of our findings. So on the first real page of the survey results, there's some comments from me explaining why we did the survey, who it's for, how we did it, and what we were looking to achieve. So just to go over that again, as I think it's really important. The reason we wanted to do the survey is because we weren't comfortable with a lot of the market information out there that's presented in the way of salary guides. Often they're not necessarily completed or collected in a survey format. They're sometimes presented by recruiters that give their insight and their opinion on what the salaries are in the market. Often people are pigeonholed based on purely job title and years of experience. And there's just so much more that goes into a Salesforce salary. So I think we wanted to really capture as much information as possible. But most importantly, we wanted to ask the ANZ Salesforce community for their input rather than just giving our own opinion on the salaries. What else did we do to make it as targeted as possible? Well, we sent the survey links only to people that we know to be living in Australia or New Zealand, only people we know to be in Salesforce roles right now. And we broke the surveys down into 8 different categories, making sure that each person that received the link received the right link based on their skill set. We also gave them the option to request a different link if their skill set had changed from what we had classified them on in our own Salesforce org. The links weren't shared anywhere else. They were only sent to people directly. They weren't on LinkedIn. They weren't open to just anyone to complete. So we asked people to provide the exact salary they're earning, the exact salary that they'll be looking to earn in the future as well. So we weren't looking to provide a range. We wanted to try to get as accurate data as possible. So that's why we did it. And I think we've achieved what we set out to do. So the first job title that we covered was Salesforce Administrator. What we looked to do, again, we didn't want to pigeonhole people based on what we believe someone to be based on years of experience and things like that. And we wanted to understand, well, if someone is going to class themselves as junior or mid-level senior lead, and what does the average profile look like of those people that are classing themselves at that level? So for every person, as an example, that classed themselves as a junior administrator, we looked to understand how many years of experience they had on average, how many certs, and what they were currently earning. So it wasn't us deciding that someone junior has this amount of experience and this many certs. This was based on the respondents choosing their own level and then us analyzing what profile made up people that chose that level. We looked at different gender salaries. We gave people the option to identify as different gender types. And we paid close attention to that because I think that's very important in terms of what we're presenting there. And unfortunately, we did find some gaps in terms of different genders earning different figures. But it's important to bring attention to that. I think it's really, it's an area that needs more focus, more attention. And that only gets the attention if people talk about it. So it's something that we've been keen to now bring to people's attention. So for the Salesforce Administrator job title, typically Salesforce administrators with 2 years of experience, 2 certs and earning 95K were identifying themselves as junior. That's 95K plus super. So for any Australian figure I mentioned for permanent salaries, that will be plus super. For mid-level, 4 years of experience, 2 certs and 115K plus super in Australia, and in New Zealand, 120K. Senior people identifying as senior typically had 5 years of experience, hold 3 certs, and were earning 130K in Australia and in New Zealand 125k. And lead typically had 8 years of experience, 4 certs, and in Australia 140k plus super. Interestingly, to understand what people are looking for when they next move roles, so a typical junior in Australia is earning 95k plus super now, but will be looking for 115 when they next move role. So that was another thing we wanted to understand, not just what people earn now, but what they're going to look for when they next move. Mid-level in Australia, people will be looking for 135 plus super, and the same figure in New Zealand. Senior was 140 plus super in Australia and 145 in New Zealand, and lead was 150k plus super for their next role in Australia. Now, if you're looking at the survey, you'll notice that for some results, we're able to present AU and NZ figures. In other areas, we're only able to present AU figures. Now, that's just purely because we didn't want to provide insight into, or we didn't want to provide figures for areas we didn't have enough data. So we wanted to make sure any figures that we were presenting, we were confident in. We had enough data to be confident in the outcome that we were providing. For the gender split, so there's a very slight difference, but any difference is unacceptable for average salaries for gender. So female average was 116 plus super and male was 117k plus super. And the average salary across the board for Salesforce administrators in Australia was 116k plus super, and in New Zealand 120k. Now, obviously, bear in mind that's for all of the different levels. So depending on your level, it's probably more relevant to pay interest to the different level averages that we've presented. On average, there are bonuses being paid, typically for mid-level 6%, senior 5%, and lead 7%. And the average Salesforce administrator number of certifications across the board is 3 certs. At the lower end of the pay scale, we found people to be earning 85k plus super, and at the highest end, we found people earning 150k plus super plus 10% bonus. And for contractors, we found people earning 1100 plus GST. One thing that we also wanted to understand for Salesforce administrators was if there was any difference on average of people from an IT background compared to people from a non-IT background. And we found that there was a slight difference. So people coming from an IT background, the average salary was 117k, and people from a non-IT background, the average was 115k. So yeah, interesting to know there is a slight difference in people with those different backgrounds. Moving on to the functional consultant role, there was no difference in terms of average salary for different genders. So for respondents, for the different respondent types we had, female was 138k and male also 138k. On average, people identifying as junior had 0 to 2 years experience, and in Australia were earning 103k, in New Zealand 85. Mid-level was 2 years of experience and earning 121k plus super in Australia and 101k in New Zealand. For senior, 5 years experience, 6 certs, 144k plus super in Australia, 135k New Zealand. And lead was 7 years experience and 156 in Australia and 125 in New Zealand, which is interesting. We are just presenting the data that we received. So it's showing us that the average lead in New Zealand is earning less than the average senior. Now, again, that's just what we've found from the studies. There are a few things in there that you're like, I wonder how that's happening. The most common salary was 150k across all respondents. Although that wasn't the average salary, that was just the most common. And the average salary in New Zealand was 130k, and the average in Australia was 138k, plus the average number of certifications was 6. We also looked for functional consultants if there was any difference in salaries for people with specialism. So interesting to see that those with field service experience are earning on average 24% more than people without. CPQ experience earning on average 28% more. Those with industries, so Salesforce industry experience, are earning on average 24% more, and Tableau CRM 7%, Tableau 7%, and Financial Force 6%. We also looked to see if there was any difference between people from an IT background for functional consultant roles. Interestingly, it kind of switches around in this one. So people with an IT background, 135k on average, and people without an IT background, 137k on average. Moving to the BA role, unfortunately, this was where we saw quite a difference in terms of average salary for genders. So female 110k and male 124k. Like I said, it wasn't something we were happy to see, definitely not, but it's something that we definitely want to bring attention to and highlight. So that's important to see. The average salary across the board for BAs in Australia, 119K plus super. The average salary in New Zealand, 110K, but the most common salary was 120K. For juniors, we didn't get many Australian-based Salesforce BAs identifying at junior level. In New Zealand, the average salary for juniors was someone with people with 3 years experience, 2 certs and 100K. Mid-level, 5 years, 3 certs. In Australia, 115K. New Zealand, 120K. Senior, 6 years experience, 2 certs. In Australia, 140K. Lead, 11 years experience, 1 cert. Most of the people that we found to be at lead level were operating in a contract role, earning 1,000 plus super. Moving on to the Salesforce product owner, product manager role. Again, we saw a slight difference in the gender average salaries. This time it flips on its head. So female average salary, 173K, male, 168K. And the average salary we found across Australia was 168K plus super. The most common salary was 150K. And the average number of certifications for product owners or Salesforce product managers was 3. For the levels, mid-level is 6 years of experience. People identifying as mid-level typically had 6 years of experience and hold 1 cert, earning 158K plus super in Australia and 160K in New Zealand. Senior, people identifying as senior had on average 7 years of experience, 170K earning in Australia plus super, and at lead level, 8 years of experience, 3 certs, and 207K plus super. For product owners / product managers, on average, they're working from an office 2 days a week. The highest salary we saw for a product owner was 250K plus super plus 20% bonus. And at the lower end, it was 105K plus 5% bonus. Moving on to the Salesforce platform manager role. Again, unfortunately, we saw a difference in the gender salaries for the averages. So female, 140K, male, 156K. The average salary across Australia for platform managers is 146K, and in New Zealand it's 145, and the average number of certifications is 4. For the platform managers, people identifying as mid-level typically had 5 years of experience, hold 2 certs. They're earning 140K on average in Australia. At a senior level, people identifying as senior have 6 years of experience, 4 certs, 153K plus super. And in New Zealand, 145K, and then lead, 10 years of experience, 6 certs, 160K plus super in Australia, and 200K in New Zealand. The lower end of the platform manager pay scale, 100K plus super, plus 15% bonus, and the highest earning platform manager pay scale, 200K plus super, plus 11% bonus. I think this is definitely an interesting one because the platform manager role can be very different. In one company, it can be someone operating as an individual contributor, the only Salesforce professional in the team. And in another company, they could have a team of 15 people working under them. So yeah, it's one of those titles that can really vary dependent on the company. The Salesforce developer role, again, unfortunately, a slight imbalance in terms of gender pay scales. Female, 130K plus super, male, 142 plus super. The average salary in Australia, 138K plus super, and in New Zealand, 143K. People identifying as junior had 2 years of experience on average, 3 certs, and were earning 105K plus super in Australia or 96K in New Zealand. Mid-level, 4 years experience, 4 certs, 124K plus super in Australia, New Zealand, 140K. Senior, 7 years of experience on average, 6 certs, 135K plus super, and New Zealand, 128K. The senior average is lower than the mid-level average in New Zealand based on respondents. Yeah, just interesting to see. And then lead, 8 years of experience, 8 certs, 190K plus super in Australia, and 143K in New Zealand. One point I want to make also about seeing the difference in mid-level and senior, mid-level, the average salary being higher. It just is interesting, right? You can't judge people based purely on years of experience and certs. I think, it depends what they've been doing. Mid-level people might have come into the market and they've only been working with Lightning. If they've got less years experience, they might be, absolute guns at Lightning Web Components. And some of the people in more senior roles that have been doing the things a little bit longer might not have done as much LWC as an example. This is just me thinking out loud to see why there could be those differences. So this is really why we didn't want to judge things just purely based on years of experience and certs. We did want to see how people identify and typically what level of experience they have and certs they have. But we wanted to look at different trends and see what was making salaries different and get a real average across the market. The average number of certifications for Salesforce developers was 6. And also, interestingly, in this one, we were able to break down quite a lot of different cities. So in Sydney, the average salary for a developer was 140 plus super, Melbourne, 134 plus super, Brisbane, 140 plus super, Perth, 153, and Adelaide, 120. And then in Auckland, we had enough data to show 140K as the average. The lower end of the Salesforce developer pay scale, 85K plus super, and the higher earning end was 190K plus super plus a 15% bonus. The highest earning Salesforce contractor daily rate that we had was Salesforce developer for 1,300 plus GST per day. We wanted to identify if there was a difference between people that had worked in programming languages prior to being in the Salesforce ecosystem compared to people that have only ever programmed in Salesforce. We saw that there was a difference. The average salary for those with a programming/development background prior to working with Salesforce was 143K plus super. And the average salary for those without a programming/development background prior to working with Salesforce was 131. We were also able to look at the average salaries based on what those programming backgrounds were for people that did have a programming background. So the average salary for Java was 152, and this is the salary they're earning now, obviously. So just taking into consideration what was their background and what they're earning now. PHP, 164 plus super, Siebel, 147, Python, 135, PeopleSoft, 133, .NET, 140, and JavaScript, 143 plus super. Salesforce developers with field service experience are earning on average 17% more than people without specialism, 11% more for people with marketing cloud experience, and 9% more for people with CPQ. The average Salesforce developer contract rate is 1090, so 1,090 per day. And in New Zealand, it's 1010, so 1,010 per day. Moving on to the solution architect. Again, this one, we saw too big a gap. Well, any gap is too big, but this one was a significant gap in terms of what male and female respondents said they're earning on average. So female, 175K plus super, male, 194K plus super. The average salary in Australia, 188K plus super, and respondents in New Zealand, the average salary was 200K. The most common salary was 190K, and the average number of certifications for Salesforce solution architects was 11. For junior, people identifying as junior typically had 4 years of experience, hold 5 certs, and were earning 155K plus super. Mid-level, 6 years of experience, 4 certs, 160K. Senior, 9 years experience, 6 certs, 179K plus super. And lead, 10 years of experience, 16 certs, and 199K plus super. The lower end of the pay scale for architects, for solution architects, we found 155K plus super. The higher end, 240 plus super plus a 15% bonus. And the highest earning Salesforce solution architect contractor, 1,600 plus GST. It's interesting because we see solution architects, some that come from a programming background, some that don't come from a technical development background. So I wanted to understand, is there a difference in salary for people that are coming from different backgrounds? People with a programming background earn 189 on average, and people without a programming background, 188 on average. And the average daily rate earned by Salesforce solution architects on contract was 1,250 plus super per day. And the average bonus across the ecosystem for solution architects was 10%. Moving on to technical architects, a little bit closer together in terms of salaries. So female, 185K on average, male, 195. Again, not good. Any difference is not right. The average salary across Australia, 192K plus super for technical architects. How do people identify? Mid-level, 9 years of experience, 7 certs, 185K plus super. Senior, 10 years of experience, 17 certs, 190K plus super. Lead, 11 years experience, 16 certs, 195K plus super. The lower end of the technical architect pay scale, 170K plus super, and the higher end, 250K plus 15% bonus. And for contractors, 1,500 plus super per day, I believe. 78% of technical architects are working for a partner, and we found on average the fintech industry was paying the most for private sector industry end users for technical architect roles. Now, some of the other skill sets or job titles, we didn't have as kind of wide a questioning pool. we presented it kind of in a whole. So some of these will blend in together. The most common salary for MuleSoft technical architects we found to be 185K plus super. That's also the average, so most common and average. For MuleSoft developers, the average was 158K in Australia plus super, and the average in New Zealand was 145K. For a senior developer, MuleSoft developer, the average was 165K in Australia plus super, and in New Zealand it was 160K. MuleSoft technical lead, we found the average to be 157 across the board, and in Sydney 158K, in Melbourne 155K. Based on seniority for technical lead, MuleSoft mid-level 145K, senior 156K, and lead 163K, all plus super. For marketing cloud administrators, we found the average salary in Australia to be 130K plus super. People at mid-level were 130K and senior 140K. For marketing cloud developers, the average salary in Australia, 135K plus super plus 15% bonus. New Zealand, 130K. Based on seniority, people identifying as junior were 113K in Australia, senior 135K plus super, and then lead in Australia, 165K plus super, and New Zealand, 140K. Marketing cloud consultant, average salary across Australia, 135K. For mid-level, 130K plus super, and senior, 150K plus super. Marketing cloud technical architects, the average we found in Australia, 175K plus super, plus 8% bonus, and the average for contract, 1350 per day. In New Zealand, we found the average to be 160K. Based on seniority for marketing cloud technical architects, mid-level in Australia, 143K plus super, senior 170K plus super, and lead 180K plus super. Average salaries across different states, we found Sydney 168K for marketing cloud technical architect, and Melbourne 170K plus super. Marketing cloud campaign manager, average salary 130K plus 4% bonus. Average salary in Sydney, 130, average salary in Melbourne, 140. Based on seniority, mid-level, 100K plus super, senior, 130K plus super, and lead, 140K plus super. Marketing cloud solution architect, we found the average across Australia to be 163K plus super plus 10% bonus. In New Zealand, 190K plus 10% bonus. Based on seniority, mid-level in Australia, 135K plus super, senior 190K plus super, and lead, we only got enough data from New Zealand, which was 190K. For pre-sales architect, the average salary we found in Australia was 203 plus super plus 18% bonus, and in New Zealand, 210K. Program architect in Australia, the average we found to be 205K plus super plus 18% bonus, and in New Zealand, 180K. Commerce cloud technical architect average salary in Australia we found to be 210K plus super. It's definitely an area where there isn't a huge amount of talent, and so 200 is, I know it to be a well-paid skill set. The big one, certified technical architect in Australia, we found the average to be 258 plus super plus 15% bonus. And the expectation for when they next move role would be 281 plus super. Enterprise architect, we found the average to be in Australia 220 plus super plus 18% bonus. And in New Zealand, 255. DevOps manager in Australia, we found the average to be 175K. People identifying as senior, typically averaging 160K, and lead 180K. Project managers, we found that most project managers that we surveyed, the results we found were that most of them were contracting. In fact, 67% of project managers that responded were contracting, earning a rate of anywhere between 1,100 and 1,300 on average per day. We found that the employer type most commonly offering stock or equity options to be private sector end users in the fintech industry. The employer type most commonly offering company vehicle, private sector end users in the health, pharmaceutical, and life sciences industry. Employer type most commonly offering relocation and visa services are Salesforce partners with more than 1,000 employees, which makes sense in my view. They're the ones with the biggest teams, often bringing people from their teams offshore. We found that 71% of companies are offering their employees flexible working, 29% offer extended leave benefits, 16% retail discounts, 11% life insurance, critical illness, and disability cover, 51% parental leave. Seems 49 companies need to really think about how they're the benefits they're offering their staff in that sense. 28% mobile phone, 15% health, wellness, and fitness membership, 10% travel allowance, 41% employee assistance programs, 22% salary packaging, 14% stock/equity options, which predominantly would be in that fintech space and the startup world, 9% paid relocation and visa services. That's a really big one to highlight because we get a lot of people from overseas that are looking for sponsorship. Only 9% of companies are offering that. 31% offering benefits around personal development. 17% health insurance, very expensive in Australia, something that more companies could consider. 12% of companies are paying additional superannuation, and only 3% of companies are provided meals. I don't know many companies out there providing meals. I know the big tech companies overseas do it a lot, but it's not common here, which the stats show. The employer type most commonly offering health benefits like dental insurance and fertility support is actually Salesforce themselves. They do an amazing job of that. Across the board, the average number of certifications is 2. 33% of people are currently working fully remote. 28% do 1 day in the office. 21% do 2 days. 3 days in the office is 12%. 4 days in the office is 2%. And only 4% of Salesforce professionals in ANZ are currently doing 5 days a week in the office. That's everything. I hope there was something in there that was of value to you. Like I said, I really do recommend you still have a read through, scan the document. There's so much more in there that I've not been able to cover in this podcast, but that's worth reading. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to answer any questions you have. And like I said, I hope it has been a valuable exercise for you. More podcasts coming soon, and please keep on tuning in. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the chat, and if you did, please make sure you have subscribed for future episodes that are coming through. I would also be very grateful if you would consider leaving a review on your chosen podcast platform, as 5-star reviews will help us to reach more trailblazers from across the world. I look forward to sharing another episode with you soon, and thanks again.